Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking every controller from the worst to the absolute best to help you decide which controller is best for you. I'm going to go through each controller and tell you the positives and negatives. And then when I get to the top 5, I'm actually going to jump into Fortnite and try them all out to see which one is my personal favorite. If you do want to enjoy today's video and you do want to see more, definitely let me know by dropping a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And also don't forget to use code Flea in the item shop to double your edit speed. I saw someone the other day that said they used code Flea and then went on to beat a macro cheater in a 1v1. So hey, what can I say? No, but anyway, let's get right into the video. So ladies and gentlemen, we are in creative, all set up, ready to go. Now I have 10 controllers lined up next to me from worst to best. So starting with number 10, we have the gold PS4 controller. Now ranking this number 10 was less about it being gold and more about it just being really cheap. This controller also falls under the category of like customized Amazon controllers, because if you don't know already, look what happens when I plug it in. As you can see, I get just insane stick drift, like I'm not even touching the stick and it's just broken. Yes, the controller came like this. So I definitely got scammed. I think it was like $150 or $200 for this gold controller that's literally broken. Despite it being broken, it still doubles my... Okay, never mind. I'm still gonna get a kill with it on a 1v1. Let's do this. Yo, I'm goated on the broken controller. Alright, let's go to number 9. Now coming in at number 9, surprisingly, we have the Razer Reshoe. To be honest, I'm just not a huge fan of this controller, mainly because of how hard it was to actually set up on your PC. I think it took me like 3 or 4 hours. And because I have a new PC, I haven't set it up on this PC, so I can't actually try it today. But long story short, the touchpad is very squishy, and I'm just not a big fan of squishy buttons. As well as the shape of the triggers are just really awkward. Like your finger doesn't sit nicely on it. It's really like pointy. It's not a terrible controller by any means, but for the premium price that you pay for it, there's definitely better controllers out there. So that was the Razer Reshoe at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have the Thrustmaster eSwap Pro controller. And all in all, in my opinion, the worst thing about this controller is the paddles on the back. In fact, they aren't even paddles, they're more so just like random buttons in the middle. I completely understand this controller was more so made for fighting games. That's why it does actually transform into a fighting controller if you wanted to. But don't get me wrong, it's not a bad controller, it's just definitely not made for Fortnite. Next controller is in fact the default Xbox controller. This thing just isn't that good. I don't know why, man. The input delay on PC just is nowhere near as good as the DS4. I can still definitely play with it, but just, I don't know, man. It's just like, I just went to go play Claw right now, but I can't actually play Claw because the D-pad's actually down here. So you can't play Claw on the default Xbox controller, which means you actually have to take your thumb off the analog stick every single time to press those arrow keys. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that, but I can definitely play with this controller fine. Like, like I said, not a bad controller, but if you are an Xbox player, there's definitely better controllers out there. The Xbox controller was number 6, and now let's move on to number 5. And number 5 being the Nikon Revolution. Now this thing is actually really cool. As you can see, it's actually got an LED ring inside of it. The biggest thing I'd say I don't like about this controller is just the paddles on the back. They don't actually have paddles, there's little buttons on the side here. And if you are someone that's used to playing with paddles, trying to play with these little back buttons is actually really awkward. But apart from that, like, it's not that bad of a controller. It's why it's at number 5. This controller probably would have got a lot higher on the list if they switched around the D-pad and analog stick. I'm not a huge fan of it, but all around it's actually a really good controller. I just shot through the ramp. Yo. As he grappled back up, bro. There's no way. So yeah, that was the Nacon Revolution. And now it's time to get on to number 4. And the number 4 controller, in my personal opinion, would be the Xbox Elite. Now, this controller is actually a really, really good controller. A lot of people do, for some reason, actually get issues with this controller. In fact, I know people that are actually on their 5th Xbox Elite, so they've bought 4 and all 4 have broken. But apart from the controller breaking, all in all, it's actually a really good controller. The Xbox Elite is by far the heaviest controller on the list, but it also has the best buttons. I could definitely see why all the fast editors use the Xbox Elite. It is one insane controller. Alright, so that was the Xbox Elite. Now coming in at number 3, we have the Scuff controllers, but more specifically the Scuff 4PS Pro. I do in fact have 3 Scuff controllers myself, so I have 2 Impacts and a 4PS Pro, and in my opinion the 4PS Pro is just the better one. On PC, for some reason, the 4PS Pro just has a lot lower input delay than the Impact. It feels great, and it also fits PS4 control freaks, which is a big win for me. Oh, see how much better I am on a PS4 controller? Yes, let's go, bro. Oh. Oh, bro. And the Scuff controllers definitely doubled my edit speed, man. This feels so nice. Alright, now for the number 2 controller. We have, of course, the one and only Astro C40. The best things about the Astro C40 is just that the controller is so responsive. All the buttons are really hard and clicky presses. There are no soft buttons on this controller. If I flip this controller over, the paddles are just ginormous. In my opinion, these are the best paddles on any pro controller, and there's a good reason why so many pro Fortnite players are switching to this controller. It is by far the best pro controller out there. And yeah, man, all around this controller just feels really, really good to use. Alright. So yeah, man, that was controller number 2, the Astro C40. Now for the best controller of all time, the undefeated world champion of controllers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the default PS4 controller. Please don't be mad at me. This is actually a really good controller. Let me explain why. First of all, I just tried 10 controllers and this controller has the lowest input delay out of all of them. Don't ask me why, I have no idea, but the PS4 controller just feels so good. I also, as you can see, have custom grips on them. The good thing about default controllers, especially the default PS4 controller, is there are so many third-party companies like Control Freak and Smart Grip that actually make accessories for default controllers. So on this controller, I actually have my Galaxy Control Freak, I have Smart Grips, as well as homemade trigger stoppers. So the customization that you can do to default controllers is the reason they are the best. And it's also the reason that people like FaZe Sway continue to use the default controller until this day. It's just the best controller, I don't know what to say. Oh yeah, I'm home. Look at that. Look how much better I am on this controller. Bro, like what? Just how good this controller feels, man. It honestly is the most responsive controller out of every control, like literally. Alright guys, but that's gonna be it for this video. So I kind of lost my outro clip, I don't know how, but if you actually did make it to the end of the video, drop a watermelon emoji in the comments. I'm gonna try and heart all your comments because I really do appreciate you making it to the end. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.